at her. Let's get at her. It is a feisty edition of the Manely Broncos podcast. We are excited and pissed off at the exact same time. So feel free to chime in the comments about, obviously how pissed off you are, how excited you are. We will definitely be talking about it all. And with Big Mike in the chat, as I could tell early, hello, Big Mike, there might be some Wingstop conversation to be had. But, first things first, before we kind of dive into Eddie, anything Broncos related, Brandon, how are you doing, man? You doing all right?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, and I'm doing poor at the same exact time. And I don't know which one is winning. I think well is winning. Like, the statement I'm doing well is currently winning the statement of I'm doing poor. And it's because of exactly what you just mentioned. I'm both pissed and happy and excited at the same exact time.
Yeah.
It's like a weird combination of feelings to feel.
It's like the weird, what's the weird GIF or meme that they have out there with the guy, it's the mask where he's completely pissed off, but on the inside, he's actually happy. Like,
I've only seen the reverse of that, but I know what you're talking about.
But yeah, it's almost exactly like that. Like you literally feel like, your heart has been pounded into a million pieces, but then your heart is still whole, knowing the fact that God bless Bo Nix. Like, it's just, yeah. Anyway, before we dive in here, I want to remind everybody to make sure you hit that subscribe button of the MHRT Network page over there on YouTube. And if you guys are fans of watching it on YouTube, you guys can go ahead and also click that like button on there. You guys can also go check out the page over on MHRT Network over there on Facebook as well, and hit the like and share and have your friends tell their friends about the Manely Broncos podcast, and obviously too about the MHRT Network. Make sure you follow both Brandon and I on all the socials, at Manely Broncos and at Cameron Parker PO and Brandon Miller PO. I got an idea, Brandon. Why don't we just get the bad out first so that we could just spend the entire show.
You want to start with the negative, though?
Just start with just get it out. Just completely just like air out this whole...
The Chiefs are frauds.
Negative energy, if you will, or the negative, the negative thing that just happened to end the game.
Frauds. They're frauds. They're fake. No. It's not real. The NFL can't bear to have them lose because they'll lose money from the Taylor Swift debacle with that connection, and they're just complete frauds. And I'm firmly in the camp that we outplayed them.
Yeah.
In Kansas City, and absolutely should have won. And look, were there multiple things you can point to that were our fault that caused the loss? Sure. But there were also things that were missed that will just continue to be missed because, like, the NFL just has a bias for Kansas City. Like, that penalty specifically on Brandon Jones was the most just weak, made up 15 yards, first down, whatever it ended up being, that I've ever seen.
5 yards, but even
5 yards, first down, whatever. First down is all that mattered. I'm heated. Because it was illegal contact. Yeah, it was 5 yards, but they got a first down. And it pisses me off because that should have taken them out. The sack should have taken them out of field goal range. No, they get a touchdown because of course they do.
Yeah. So
it just
the thing
it's already hard enough to beat them. Don't make it harder.
I don't mean to go down too much of a vent session here to what you're talking about.
Let's start with the negative.
But here's the problem. Look, people can pull up all sorts of statistics that they want in the fact that, that Oh, the in terms of favoritism of the Chiefs, or that they're maybe right down in the middle, or so on and so forth. That's certainly a statistic that is giving credence to the idea that there is no favoritism. Well, do you ever consider to this idea that it's also when certain calls are happening, or better yet, not happening? Like, like for instance, that illegal contact penalty. Like it's a penalty that they called that should never have been called, and it impacts the game in a way that it shouldn't. I mean, and certainly, yeah, the penalties don't necessarily add up in the sense of favoritism, but how many times, and one more time again, was there a false start on Mr. Right Tackle, Jawan Taylor, or illegal formation or whatever, that they decided not to call? There was only one time actually that I noticed, like in the game, where they decided to actually call illegal formation on Jawan Taylor. Like it gets to the point where if you really, really want to make that right tackle, make an example of, if you will, and just prove that how he is just getting off the line of scrimmage, start calling those, those penalties. If you do that, well, then you start, recognizing, oh, I probably should work on the fact that, oh, I'm mistiming a snap. You know what I mean? But no, they're not doing that. And it's more about like the actual happenings of something where it is blatantly obvious that it is a penalty. And it's not just, when the Broncos have played the Chiefs in that game either. There have been a handful of occasions where the Broncos have played the Kansas City Chiefs, even in Arrowhead, where there have been phantom calls that have gone, unfortunately, in the Broncos' direction due to a penalty. I mean, there was another phantom call a couple of years ago in Arrowhead, it was last year with Russell Wilson, or was it last year or 2 years ago in the Nathaniel Hackett era? But like, it was like he threw the pass to Courtland Sutton. They were up by like 2 touchdowns. Funny enough, 14-3. And, they decided to call the offensive pass interference on Courtland Sutton, which ended up not even being pass interference at all. But they decided to call offensive pass interference against Courtland Sutton. Now you move forward to more years, and Brandon Jones gets called for an illegal contact, on Travis Kelce, which was basically a phantom Travis Kelce call. And now we're starting to hear even more rumblings, Brandon. I don't know if you got a chance to see the Sporting News article that just came out where, Taylor Swift has a FaceTime, call with a, NFL referee. And it just so had, or NFL referees, and it just so happened that one of the NFL referees that was on that call, weirdly enough, happened to be that referee that called the illegal contact play on Travis Kelce.
Mm-hmm. I didn't see that. I don't know. It's the Jawan Taylor stuff. I'll say this. I think Jawan Taylor's timing is insane. Like, he is very, 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 very close to timing it insanely perfectly. If you go back and watch what should be false starts. And I think it might be close enough that, is it possible that it's hard to see? Sure. But I also think that they just let him do it. I think he just thinks he can get away with it. But I will say, like, the timing that he puts out there on tape to get out of his stance in time with the snap is, like, insane. Like, no one else is moving even remotely close to, like, it seems so. He basically looks like he's the Flash and everyone else is in quicksand. Like, props to him for that, because it's insanely close. But close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, and he is still doing it early. And that's been a thing since the beginning of last year. So it's not really going to go away. But it's just, look, the NFL has become slightly more like the NBA in that the star teams, in this case, get calls that the other teams don't get. And it's just worse in the NFL because it does so much more for that team than it ever would for any of the phantom, stupid, fake calls or non-calls that someone like LeBron James gets in the NBA, where he can full tackle a guy on the court and it doesn't matter and he's not going to get called, or someone can breathe on him wrong and he's going to go to the line. And it's just the NFL is kind of adopting that stance a little bit. The problem is, again, just in the NFL, it's so much more impactful than it is in the NBA. Not that it's not impactful in the NBA, but it's just worse. And unfortunately, the Chiefs are the team that gets it.
Well, and what's crazy is like this isn't the first time the NFL has actually shown in what would appear to be favoritism in this regard. Like, go back to, say, the Patriots dynasty, or certain quarterbacks in that regard, like, and where you specifically see it is like roughing the passer, right? Like specifically on something to what it is that you're talking about there. So it's just
thing. Go ahead.
No, it's just like we certainly have seen it, but it does feel like it's getting to the point specifically, and you can say we're venting and whatever, but like it feels like just simply from the Chiefs' perspective, it is way more amplified in that direction because of that.
The other thing that compounds this and makes it worse is the annoyance of Patrick Mahomes constantly whining for flags that shouldn't be flags. And look, I say all this, and look, we could have won the game. We could have won the game even if all those things happened, and we messed up. It's our fault. It's just annoying to see as a fan a team constantly just get coddled because they're the Chiefs and they're the superstar team, and they have to do things that NFL has to make it easier on them because, like, they have to win 3 in a row because no team's done that. They have to be undefeated because it's a better story. They have to constantly look good because Travis Kelce is dating the most famous person on the planet. Like, come on.
Well, and like, take even just the fandom out of it. It takes the entire joy out of watching a game when you have a player who is just simply just begging for a call. And the basketball example is the best example because you have, players whine constantly for fouls, and admittedly, Jokic is, a victim of this at times. Like, he gets a bit too whiny at times for some calls. But
he does. But it's funny because Jokic, there's what is it with Denver? What do people have against Denver? Because Jokic probably gets the least favorable calls of any superstar in the NBA that I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, but you're
He's
right,
been the best player in the NBA for 4 years in a row.
No, but you're right. But I think that like the whining-ish attitude, if you will, from Jokic, like he kind of has to do that in order for people to, really kind of like recognize this whole idea that like, hey, I'm not getting calls. But like,
and maybe this is me being a biased fan. But I don't have a problem with Jokic doing it because he doesn't get calls that he should get that are actual penalties. I have a problem with someone like Patrick Mahomes doing it because he just expects preferential treatment, and then if he doesn't get it, he gets upset.
But that's where I was just going to say is like it gets to be so unenjoyable though when you have a player whine 24/7 in a game, and it's in a lot of moments where there should not even be a flag thrown. And like, it makes it darn near unwatchable. Like, it absolutely just makes it so unwatchable. And I actually say that not even as a Bronco fan, but just like a sports fan in general. Like, it makes it so unenjoyable when you have a player that is just that I mean, kudos for being that emotionally invested. That's a great thing. But like, when you are allowing that to take over a lot of what you're doing because you're, guilting the system, it's a really bad look. I don't know. But let's get the other bad thing out of the way. And that would be this field goal situation.
Oh, that was another bad. That would have made the field goal irrelevant.
And You want to lead? You already let off with. So
it was a over the middle of the field 20-yard dime pass from Bo to Cortland Sutton that should have been caught and was completely just dropped. And we wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't have had to rely on that field goal. And look, I get it. It happens. I'm not blaming Cortland Sutton. Like, unfortunately, things happen, but, you know, he's had drop issues before. And it just seems to happen at the worst possible time. And he's still our best receiver. Like, I can't hate him. He's our best receiver. I love Cortland Sutton. It just felt heart-wrenching and gut-wrenching because it's like, of course it has to happen in that moment.
I know, but he made up for it.
He did make up for it.
When literally the biggest play of the game, that wasn't the field goal.
Well, I think that had happened first, actually, before the drop. But, I mean, he made some good plays. Like, don't get me wrong.
I'd say
he was also part of the reason why we should have won the game, but he's also part of the reason why we lost the game at the same time. But anyway,
no.
You have that. You have the phantom call on Brandon Jones, but then you have the most egregious one, which is unfortunately the Chiefs taking advantage of something that we've put on film for 5 games. Mm-hmm. And that being our complete inability to adequately hold up a line of scrimmage on any kind of kick. And they made us pay for it. And we should have absolutely won. Like, that was a chip shot. You don't ever miss those. You don't get those blocked. I think that was shorter than an extra point.
Yeah, 37, 35.
It was all Cam's Jinx tweet's fault. It was. And look, Alex Forsyth, I don't hate him. Like, I'm not hating on Alex Forsyth. He's obviously a very young player, that he's a rookie. Like, this is going to happen. But I put this more honestly on the coaches. And I mean, I say coaches, I don't mean specifically Westhoff, even though he was a special teams coordinator, although I am very devastated by that news because Westhoff is one of the greatest coaches of all time. And if you didn't know, he unfortunately is stepping away due to some health issues.
Prayers up to
Mike Westhoff, who follows me on Twitter. Thanks, Mike.
He follows the show. He's actually follows a lot of Broncos country.
He is of the people. Awesome coach.
But anyway, our prayers certainly go out to you, Mike, and we wish you nothing but the best in your speedy recovery. And so it's definitely devastating. But which, by the way, to clear things up, he was not the special teams coordinator. Ben Quadica was the special teams coordinator. Where it gets to have been a bit dicey was he was the assistant head coach.
And that's, I say, the reason I wanted to specifically mention that I wasn't talking about Mike, he was technically part of the special teams coaching unit.
He was like overseeing.
And that's why I said the special teams coaches, and I wanted to specify that I was not talking about him. The special teams unit, I mean, look, that failure's on them. I just have to, you put that at their feet. Yes, Alex Forsyth's the one that made that an issue, but it's been a problem. He's done this so many times where he ends up on the ground because he doesn't block correctly, he doesn't come out of his stance correctly. His technique is just wrong. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm an offensive line coach, but like, he's clearly doing something wrong where he constantly gets beaten immediately and shoved to the ground. And it's just something that the Chiefs saw on film and exploited. And I hate that they made a good play out of it, but you can't put things on film like that and expect the other team to not see it. Like, that was wholeheartedly on the coach because that should have been fixed. And Alex is the one that had the problem, but again, he's a rookie. I can't really even put that on him. He needed to be coached up to get that fixed. And it happened so many times and it wasn't fixed to the point that it was easy to exploit, and they exploited it. And it was
devastating.
That's one of the worst losses I can remember.
And I will say this, obviously, to clarify, Brandon, just a little bit, like, Forsyth is not a rookie. He feels like a rookie because this is like his first official year.
I'm calling him a rookie.
Yeah, no. So it's totally fair. I think that
technically he was drafted in 2023, but he didn't actually do anything. Like he didn't start until week 6 of this year. I'm calling that a rookie.
No, yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not hitting on that.
No, you're right. I just wanted to preface that. You're correct. I said rookie and I didn't elaborate. He's technically not a rookie, but he's a rookie.
Just in case we get comment police that chime in. He's not a rookie.
He is though. He's not, but he is.
Yeah. But like, I will say this: one of the reasons why there was no conversation about it, and maybe if there was, that is truly why the film gurus do exactly what it is that they do, and and they do such a great job of this. If they were able to catch this kind of early, but the reason why it wasn't necessarily talked about on like these podcasts or anything going forward was, well, Will Lutz was making those field goals, and it was just kind of like not really much of a talking point. You know what I mean? But then, what makes it so much worse is, it's against the Kansas City Chiefs. You move Bo Nix, to the right hash, and he basically has to kick it over Alex Forsyth, on that kind of scenario like that. And it really just kind of like snowballed at that point, unfortunately, really just leading up to the idea that it was likely going to be ending up a block field. And by the way, to kind of circle back to our previous first conversation, this is why it gets so uncomfortable playing the Kansas City Chiefs or watching a game against the Kansas City Chiefs, because there is at least a 5% thought in the back of your mind that says this is going to get blocked, isn't it? Like, because like just that's the way that the Kansas City Chiefs have kind of like operated now under Andy Reid and everything. Is like there's just at least this opportunity where this is going to end up being blocked, isn't it? And so, but nonetheless, I think it wasn't amplified because of the fact that, Will Lutz was making those field goals, but it makes it look so much worse. Now that it was a blocked field goal, it was literally at the end of the game.
I believe my exact reaction was because of course.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I said the exact same thing on Twitter, aside from like hyperventilating, I'm sweaty numerous times. But like, it just seems so fitting. You have an undefeated season. It just seems fitting for that to be a game that literally goes to the Chiefs' way.
Yeah, because of course it does, right? I mean,
what would you do? What would you do?
Kudos to them because they took advantage of something they saw on film. I'm pissed that we put it on film to begin with.
What would you do to kind of fix this? I posed this on 5280, but I think that one way that I would certainly do it is either you put Wattenberg on there, because I'm assuming they use a long snapper on field goals. Mitchell Fabroni, the GOAT, doing the long snapping. One thing that I kind of posed was maybe Calvin Throckmorton. You call up Calvin Throckmorton and, just basically a swing tackle / guard. You could probably put him on there. Yeah. And I will preface this by saying something that I thought that the Kelseys even brought up on the New Heights podcast, and Tyler Columbus mentioned this, to a certain extent, is that a field goal attempt is almost like it's basically setting up that entire offensive line, that overloaded offensive line, if you will, for a field goal attempt to fail, specifically on like certain sides, of a field goal attempt, because it's already overloaded on like the left side or the right side. So maybe we're all kind of looking at it wrong in the sense that, the blame necessarily isn't really on Forsyth. It was just the Kansas City Chiefs truly exploiting, this weakness that had been going on for 5 weeks. And just unfortunately, Forsyth didn't have the leverage.
What's a Forsyth? It was a weakness of Forsyth. Like it was on him, but it wasn't like I'm not putting it on him. But I see what you're saying, but I think it was.
Yeah.
but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, well, and specifically when you're having players, basically kind of come out and specifically like, what is it? Jason Kelsey talked about it on New Heights today.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, this will not be the first time we talk about, should I say, the Kelseys and stuff like that. All right, enough about this field goal talk. Let's talk about some of this positive, and that would let's start first with the defense. And
there was a lot of positive. Go ahead.
Yeah, there was a lot of positive. All right, defensively and offensively, from that side of things, you I will say, like, you saw a unit, offense and defense, that were just absolutely hitting. You know what I mean? Like, absolutely hitting Patrick Mahomes at will. I mean, like, it was, a case where, I mean, every single time Mahomes was back there, he was literally just on his back every single time. Or, then you have like, cases where, there were like numerous times where there were multiple guys back there. I mean, like Nick Bonito, not to dive too much into the illegal contact play, should have had a sack, should have had 3 sacks on the day. But like Bonito was just making the rookie left tackle, or one of the young left tackles, a living nightmare in that game against the Chiefs.
I felt like Nick Bonito was in the backfield every single play. Like, he was absolutely blowing it up.
Honestly,
he is.
Let's briefly touch on this, because like this is a conversation that you and I have had, I think, for numerous weeks, and even to the people in the chat. If you guys are watching this stream, Big Mike, Josh, and Gonzo, if you guys are still in the stream, please feel free to chime in. Anybody that else hasn't chimed in, please do. But like you and I've had this conversation, it feels like even ad nauseum, but the way that things have been unfolding with him, with Bonito and obviously Cooper, they're really feeding off of each other well. But like that specific game, obviously maybe the that left tackle, may not have been, the greatest left tackle in the world, that day. But like those are the types of games against the undefeated team, a Super Bowl winning and contending team, like that you need your best defensive players to show up. And that was, to be completely honest with you, Brandon, that was the first game post Von Miller where you actually felt like Von Miller was back. Like, it was an absolute dominant performance by Bonito.
So what I was going to say, and I love Von Miller, and I'm not even going to say that he was the second coming of Von Miller or anything like that, but I'm going to say that Nick Bonito is the best pass rusher we've had since Von Miller. And I think Jonathan Cooper is close too, to be honest with you. Like, Jonathan Cooper is close as well. But in terms of like pure pass rusher, I'm giving it to Nick Bonito for now. He is just,
because like specifically the one play that
killing it.
Because specifically to the Von point, like that one sack that did count, we should say, that was like vintage Von, not necessarily like the dip and spin and whatever,
dude, he's so fast. He is insanely fast.
He timed the snap so perfectly that was right there a nice little screenshot and video, if you will, of what made Nick Bonito such a sought-after prospect, given the fact that he led, college football, or in the top 5 rather, since like of all pass rushers since 2010. Like Von Miller was in there, Myles Garrett was in there. Like Bonito had like the top 5, most pass rush win rates since like 2010. Like, it goes to show you that when you are a dominant player at that, it's one of the easiest transitions for you. And I think that one where he's clearly taken that next step with is the run defense. Like he's taken a step forward, a significant step forward to where I really do believe he is the edge rusher one on this team. And it's kind of a hot take because like Cooper is in lockstep with him, but I don't think it's close right now. Like Benito is he just shows out like nearly every single play right now.
We traded the right player. That's what I'm going to say.
That is for sure.
And as much as I was a Baron Browning fan, we needed to do whatever it took to give Nick Benito the opportunity to have as many snaps as possible and really flourish as the pass rusher one on this team that he should be. Now he's special. He's something else.
Now, one area where it was a little bit of a weakness, and this is something that we've kind of touched on a little bit about this defense, is the linebacker spot. Now, I'm not gonna hate on Justin Strnad too much in this game, because I thought that he actually had a fairly good game, all things considered. He just took a few bad angles. When he was rushing the quarterback a few times, but he was helping in the run game. He's definitely athletic enough to help in the passing game. There were some cases, certainly even in the pass game, where, he was really good in pass coverage. And I think that as we preview this Falcons game, that particular matchup is one where I would maybe not necessarily rely on Barton to a certain extent, but I would probably want to rely on maybe like a Strnad in coverage with a guy like, Kyle Pitts and stuff, for that tight end, linebacker matchup possibly. But yeah, I thought that Strnad was okay. But Barton was, in his own right, flashy, but also inconsistent. And I think that unfortunately in the plays where it really showed out negatively was, in the one, where, Travis Kelce was, open. But I will say, like, it goes to show you, for as much as we were, dogging and hating on Pat Mahomes, it's what makes their relationship so special, because they have such a, just a very, like, it's like their relationship is like all synergy. Like they're in lockstep, like basically since day one. And it goes to show you just how they might end up being, in conversation with the, Tom Brady and, Rob Gronkowski, right? So like they may end up being in that kind of conversation of, Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce, who is better? You know what I mean? Like, and so it's just kind of crazy how in lockstep they are.
Yeah, absolutely. That entire defense, to be honest, like props to them for the bounce back that they showed against a arguably better team in the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, not even arguably, because I'm going to say the Ravens are better right now. But to go from how they played against the Ravens to how they played against the Chiefs, the top two teams in the NFL by far, in the span of like 1 week, is just impressive. And like props to Vance for turning that around, and props to that entire team for just being able to have short-term memory, if you will, be like, hey, you know what? This was one game, but we're going to get back to the dominance that we had displayed pretty much every other week, going up to the Ravens game. And, it just shows that was, I mean, I feel like there was a little bit of, like doubting, I would say, that I had seen on like, hey, was the defense actually as good as we thought it was? Or did they look like they were maybe exposed a little bit? And I think that this should have shut them up.
Yeah.
I mean, look, were there some mistakes that were made? Sure. But again, you're going up against one of the best teams in the entire league. You're not going to be perfect.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that was just so great was this is where I do think it gets a bit nitpicky to a certain degree, like or nitpicky, but also frustrating when you actually watch a live game, because there are lapses, right? There are lapses sometimes in games where it's like you just cannot leave a player, like player X open on this certain situation, right? And so I just think it's one of those cases where it's like, because like the one thing that I'm thinking of is like it was the third and like long, and they found DeAndre Hopkins, right? It's just like it's one of those things, like those types of things can happen, but by the end of the day, it's like those things didn't necessarily matter as much because of how good you are in the red area, right? Like your scoring defense, your red zone defense is still very much a really good unit. Yeah, I still think overall the defense really shined. Matty,
defense absolutely was balling out. Matty, what up?
Fighting a sinus infection, gents. It's tough in these streets. So I'll be on for a few minutes, but obviously,
well, the good news is
very, very long.
Well, I was going to say the good news is we got our frustration out talking about the negative, and we're focusing just solely on
Forsyth was not with us.
He was force pushed, if you will. But we're focusing on the positives right now, Matty. So we're talking about how good the defense was, and actually, you just missed the conversation where we were hyping up your boy, your Boomer Sooner boy.
I mean, Nick Benito's a stud. He's very bonito. I just so sick that they called that dumbass illegal contact penalty.
Yeah.
Against Jones on that third down.
Phantom.
We would have gotten the stop. We were up 14-3. Our offense was humming. There's no doubt in my mind that we would have gone down the field, at least gotten a field goal, but probably would have scored another touchdown the way we were moving, like 21-3 at halftime. I'm not saying that's curtains, but the way that our defense was playing, that would have been pretty tough for the Chiefs to come back.
And certainly with the way that the game unfolded, with it being a 2-point deficit, that would have been curtains. And I think that the one area where we always talk about it so much from the Broncos side of things, not just the edge rushing, unit, guys, but like the interior of this defensive line too deserves so much flowers for how well they're playing. Like, guys, like I think that there's one player who I just think that we haven't had a lot of conversation about this year. He's kind of flying under the radar, and that's DJ Jones. Also, like
DJ Jones had probably his best game.
Like DJ Jones, like he is to a certain degree is flying under the radar of also like extension candidates, like about whether or not you choose to extend him, or do you go to the draft and pick someone up in a rather deep interior defensive line class.
Man, the front three they're so like they don't get the credit, right? The edge rushers do get a lot of credit. Our secondary gets a lot of credit, but man, it all starts up front, and the ability to just bring, you have your front three that are able to just eat up so much, and then you have one other guy come on the edge, and they're getting home because we're wrecking so much in the interior. Like I know that we have a lot of needs offensively, but I wouldn't be heartbroken if we rotated more talent in there and just continue to restock that cupboard, because
like on the interior.
Yeah, because seeing the way that they're able to be I'm all about this. If you've listened to this for any period of time. Force multipliers, guys that
Mm-hmm.
make other guys around them better. We have 3 of those guys up front that are able to make everybody else just fly to the ball and do work. So it's good to see, and they had an incredible game.
Yeah.
I mean, Mahomes couldn't do anything stepping into the pocket.
Sprained ankle or not, I mean, he couldn't.
I don't give a damn. Everybody's
Yeah.
hurt.
Yeah. He had a very long day back there. One of the biggest takeaway, if not it actually should have been the biggest takeaway of the game, had the Broncos actually kicked it through the uprights on not a blocked field goal. Sorry.
Never happened. I don't know what you're talking about.
But it is that this game also confirmed that Bo Nix is in fact outplaying Patrick Mahomes on the season, and so much so that Bo Nix, frankly, it looked like he kind of cemented himself as a franchise quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Like, that is a type of game. I think that there were some certain drives where specifically the offensive play calling got a little bit too cute, where it wasn't necessarily on Bo at times. I mean, he took some pretty bad, 2 bad sacks where, you hope he learns from that and that kind of deal and, throws it away and stuff like that. But like, the moment was not too big for him in Arrowhead for his first start. And like, it was the game you needed. And I have to pull it up because I tweeted it this morning, and kudos to Dan Orlovsky for sharing it and giving Bo Nix some praise this morning. But Steve Spagnuolo said this about Bo Nix before the game, and this was shared by James Palmer. I went back and watched the first game he played in, and was I thought Sean had him doing things that sometimes you say, do you have a rookie do it in the first game that he plays? But yet, there he is. He's doing it. I just think he's gotten better every week. He looks more comfortable. You guys see it. It's another athletic quarterback, and I think that those guys are always headaches because, there's certain things that you can and cannot do because, you're afraid that he's going to make you look bad with his feet, and he can do that. I think he's getting, and listen, he can throw the football. There's no doubt about that. And they have themselves a good one. And I think that the reason why I say that is because how often would we get praise from an opposing coach and they poop the bed the following, that following game? And so the fact that Nix basically confirmed everything that Spagnuolo mentioned just makes this all more sweeter as a Broncos fan, and just as an NFL fan, knowing the fact that it really feels like Bo Nix is the guy.
I have so many thoughts. Matty, you can go first, though, since you're only with us for a shorter period of time.
God bless Bo Nix, first of all. God bless him.
Hold on. We got to cue it up, right? God bless Bo Nix.
God bless Bo Nix.
Let's go Broncos! God bless Bo Nix!
I mean, we've got a guy. Yeah, he makes rookie mistakes, but I think people around the league are noticing. And for as much as we talk about, like Caleb Williams and his issues, now I don't think it's all him. I think that Lincoln Riley did a poor job of preparing him for the NFL.
You were all over that. For anybody that was, I will say, talking about the relationship of Lincoln Riley and, in particular about the transition, going into the NFL, go find, a lot of those episodes where we're doing some of the pre-draft process when we were talking with Matty, for anybody that's in the chat, and Matty was all over it in terms of, the transition with Lincoln Riley and how much they struggle in the NFL.
It's simplified for the college game, and those guys can excel there where they can get by on talent. But in the NFL, most of the talent is between your ears, and you got to be able to process stuff, and that takes time. It takes a process to process. You have to know how to read a defense. You have to know how to slide coverages. You got to understand what you're seeing. You have to be willing to put in the work to read film and to digest all of that. That's not necessarily the thing. It's a pretty wide open scheme, and it's very simplified terminology even. So there's a lot that goes into why Caleb Williams is not having success. One reason why he's not having success is that coaching, but he doesn't have the excuse when it comes to the skill players.
Nope.
He has talent all around him on that offense. Bo Nix does not. And Cortland Sutton has shown that, over the last couple of weeks that he can retake that throne of being a wide receiver one. I still am a bit skeptical. I think that a legit wide receiver one would open up this offense immensely, but
more importantly, he's probably cementing the idea about maybe moving forward with him on the roster. That's probably
they're working on some chemistry, and that's good. But I think other people around the NFL are noticing that Bo Nix is not the problem with the Broncos offense, that there are actually other factors, and Bo Nix is keeping us competitive and keeping us in some of these games that otherwise we might not have been, especially last year. And so I also see toughness. I see that third down conversion he had to Cortland Sutton. Like, people gloss over that, but that's an incredibly difficult play, especially for a rookie to see that and know where the pressure is going to come and slide, and to do all of that on the fly. And
but I thought he's struggling with pressures and stuff like that.
I mean,
he was, but he got better. I don't want to.
A rookie quarterback gets better at the halfway point of the season? No way. Go ahead, Brandon. Wax poetic.
Yeah, my biggest thing, and this I think is to me, this is like the biggest thing we've seen is, did he struggle with that before? Yeah. I'm not going to say he didn't, because he did, but the amount of growth we've seen from him in 9 weeks, 10 weeks,
it's almost like 2 seasons worth.
You see, look, people talk all the time. You'll know quickly. Rookies struggle. There's specific positions that struggle more. Quarterback can be one of them. Quarterback, you've seen people have more success when they sit for a long time. Maybe Caleb Williams would have benefited from sitting more. But then you also have quarterbacks that come in and you just know. They just get it. He's had 60 starts in college. He's gone through development already. But also the fact, the people that... Do you guys remember the people that said, he's at his ceiling already because he's so old? He's played 60 games in college.
Mm-hmm.
Why does that matter? How does that make him be at his ceiling? At a ceiling in that offense, maybe, but it's a college offense. That's a dumb analysis. I'm sorry, but that's just trying to confirm a bias. And he's gotten better. I am a believer, 100%. I think Bo Nix can and probably will be our franchise quarterback. I'm dead honest here. Are there maybe going to be some more growing pains? Yeah. That happens. He's a rookie. That's all I want from this season. And it's hard to say this after what should have been an absolute victory in Arrowhead against the Chiefs that would have just
99% of the time
feelings.
That's the victory.
But really, the only thing that we really should care about this season is, does Bo show something? And he's already shown something, and he has more games to continue to show something. And the progress we've seen from him from week 1 to now is palpable. You can see it. And I trust that it's going to continue to get better. He's going to continue to develop and get him some more weapons.
Yeah, Matty.
And I want to see what happens.
Exactly. Well, a lot of the ways that he was impacting the game earlier this season was with his legs. You could tell that there was a concerted effort by the Chiefs to not let him win with his legs. They brought a lot of pressure to his right side, which he prefers to roll to, which ironically enough was that biggest play of the game where he moved to the right and then stepped in. But he proved that he could dictate and make an impact on the game with just his arm and not utilizing his God-given athletic ability. And I think that's important. You got to have a multifaceted quarterback in today's NFL that can win throwing or running. I mean, we saw Lamar Jackson torched us, and he didn't even run the ball against us.
And I think that, if you're a Broncos fan, Matty, like, this should all but like throw away the Carolina Panthers game. Because like the Carolina Panthers game, he beat you with this, he beat you with the arm. And then, now with the Kansas City Chiefs game, he literally beat the Chiefs, a top 5 defense, with his arm. So not bad for a cosplayer at quarterback, but like, it's just
fake it till you make it, right?
No,
He's
but like
cosplaying.
Yeah. So, but I mean, like, to anybody that's like, throwing out this stuff about like, he's a Taylor Heineke, or, he was, he's going to end up being a career backup in the NFL, or, anybody that is, throwing this out there that, I don't think the marriage between Sean Payton and Bo Nix is actually going to work out, because Payton is a bit too arrogant because he wants to call certain things. Well, guess what? Bo Nix is actually going to a certain situation where there were only 2 offensive coaches where a quarterback was drafted to, and we have to wait like 15 years to get a chance to see the other one because he's getting a second surgery with Minnesota. We're seeing the benefits of why an offensive coach matters, and it's bearing fruit with Sean Payton and Bo Nix, and Nix will literally hit arguably more than the ceiling that a lot of us projected for him because of what we've been able to see with both of his legs and his arm. And so he's shutting up a lot of, people except for Pizza Hut at 33rd team. So like, it's just like, it's getting to the point where he is literally shutting up every single doubter week by week. And I'm here to tell you, if you hate on Bo Nix at this particular point, that's a you problem at this point.
Drop the mic.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, I think Broncos fans over the last almost a decade now, since we won Super Bowl 50, have just gotten used to the abusive relationship they have with the team. And we don't know what it's like to actually have nice things. We don't know what it's like to legitimately have a franchise quarterback that we drafted. Go figure that. Like, first time ever.
First
maybe
time
you could say Jay Cutler, like, era, maybe.
Like, first quarterback taken the first round since, our PTSD quarterback that, Paxton Lynch.
Yeah. Yeah, I almost forgot about him.
Okay.
You mean Voldemort?
So, like, are they waiting for the other shooter drop? Because there's not one. He's not Russell Wilson. Like, that's not the situation we have here. And within the next couple of years, our cap is going to clean up. We're going to be able to surround with talent. We see the makings of a guy that's going to be able to leverage high impact players and get the ball in their hands, and then be able to do things off script when things aren't perfect. So I don't know what there is right now to hate about Bo Nix, and looking at his trajectory slowly but surely, a lot of the people, I'm not going to necessarily say haters, but I'll say highly skeptical people are starting to come around. You're starting to see it.
Yeah.
The skeptical people, maybe. The haters, not so much. There are still haters.
I will say this. One of the biggest things in why...
One specific hater.
But I will say that the reason why I would, and you can call it bias and whatever, I would put Bo Nix in the leader board in terms of like the front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year is actually, but like, this is just my argument, is that he is actually making a wide receiving core that is basically just Cortland Sutton, and just meh.
And 6 other dudes from the YMCA.
Yeah, but he's basically turning them in.
I did to my boy Devon Valet like that.
No, you're right. He's been balling, but I'm just saying, like, like
Five other guys.
The wide receiving core of, like, aside from Franklin and Vele and obviously Sutton, it's just like it's basically nothing. But he's making the room around them better, which has basically been the argument for Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning made the entire room around him better. He made guys like Brandon Stokely famous, Dallas Clark famous. You could argue he made the father of Marvin Harrison Jr. famous. I mean, like, he made these guys, kind of like the development of where they were. Demaryius Thomas, he really pushed forward with the ceiling of, what Demaryius Thomas was actually capable of. And maybe, just maybe, we actually get to the point where we can finally see the ceiling of what we were going to see with Courtland Sutton, which was that, short stint in 2019, with Drew Sember, where we can actually get a chance to finally see, Sutton really reach a lot of what we were hoping to see in 2019.
I'm just so happy for Courtland Sutton because I feel like he's finally getting this. Is this already the best quarterback Courtland Sutton's played with? I mean, you can look at last year's Russell Wilson and say maybe that was it, but I'm just happy for Courtland Sutton because he's been, unfortunately, the 100-yard games did not reach.
He is basically
3 in a row against the Chiefs, although it should have. But he's I talked about it before you got on. I hate it. But anyway, I'm just happy for Courtland Sutton. Like, that's what this comes down to. He's a great wide receiver. I still think he's incredibly underrated. And he is going to get some consistency here. And also, you know what? I love Devon Vele. Get Devon Vele more targets of every kind. We absolutely still need more weapons for Bo. Is Courtland going to be here next year? I don't know, but I'm just happy for him now because I think he has a quarterback that is competent. And you could make the argument that he did technically last year. He had 10 touchdowns. He made some absolutely ridiculous grabs. And so right now, maybe, yes, you would put maybe 2023 Russell Wilson as the best quarterback that Courtland has played with. But yeah, I'm just happy for Sutton. He's having a good year. And I'm just curious to see how this year ends up for him because obviously, yes, we're more than halfway through the season, but we're starting to actually get into a rhythm. The first 2 weeks of Bo Nix's career, it's also needs to be mentioned, he had 2 picks or 4 picks. 0-2, I think 2 picks a game. And since then, he's been steadily improving. He's starting to light it up. So I think we could realistically, could we see a 1,000-yard Courtland Sutton season? Maybe.
I think we could. And, this is the other talking point that I wanted to bring up. And, Matty, maybe before you head off and, you get your beauty sleep, it's fitting we have this conversation, but like the offensive line deserves so much credit for how they are protecting their young quarterback. And I want to start first by actually asking something, and I posed it in the chat for our predominantly orange Slack chat, and that is Garrett Bowles is getting to the point where, at the beginning of the year, it was a very frustrating conversation because it was, I don't know if he's going to be accepting a contract extension. I don't know if he's going to be, if the Broncos actually asked him to do another restructure, are they going to want him to do that? It's actually getting to the point where they have to kickstart possibly some contract extension stuff with Garrett Bowles, but so much so that I wonder, Matty, if maybe a nice little placeholder for this would be a franchise tag. And I think that thankfully, because they signed Jonathan Cooper, they can afford now being a little bit more flexible about how they want to use this franchise tag going forward for a guy like a Garrett Bowles. And anybody that doesn't know or hasn't looked at the numbers, it rounds out to about $21 million for an offensive lineman. So that's about 1 year if you will, right? 1 year, $21 million. So it's a nice little placeholder to possibly get a deal done that might be like, 3 years of that exact same million amount. So maybe like 3 years, 63 million. And then we can kind of figure out the guarantees from there.
Yeah. I certainly wouldn't do anything more than 3. I might do like a 2+1 type of situation where you've got a chance to maybe get out of it after 2 with no cap hit. 20 million for him, 21 million's a good number for a left tackle.
Specifically when he's getting ready to turn 34.
I mean, and that's the thing, right? Like 3 years from now, dude's going to be 37.
Tyron Smith's age.
Like, yeah, but he's not him. He'd be Garrett Holtz by that point, potentially. Holding number 72. It's like I get the go-in rate, and I get that there's not a lot of talent at the position, and it's an important position.
There's not also a lot of good tackles in the class either this upcoming year.
Last year would have been the time to get one of those guys. It's a tough spot, but the offensive line's been very good. And day 1, minute 1, when Peyton came in, Coach Peyton, he remade that offensive line. We went and got McGlinchey, we got Powers, and we drafted minors. We did some things. We put capital into the offensive line, so it's certainly important. We just extended minors too. Mm-hmm. So, the left tackle is probably the most important position with a right-handed quarterback on that offensive line. So it's kind of a no-brainer if you can franchise tag and do something. But man, I would not go beyond 3 years, and I would make sure that cap number is massageable.
Brandon, we're also getting to the point where Mike McGlinchey, for as much as maybe Bo Nix is shutting up a lot of the haters, McGlinchey is also shutting up a lot of haters week by week with his pass protection, the run blocking. I mean, he looks really, really good. So, to the theory that I even posed, Brandon, as we're talking about Garrett Bowles, maybe if they do move on from Garrett, do they work with the theory of moving Mike McGlinchey to left tackle, then you do Alex Pavlovsky to right tackle? But nonetheless, McGlinchey is playing really, really good football right now on that right tackle spot.
I'm so torn on the move him to left tackle. I'd rather try to give Bulls the franchise tag.
But to talk about Mike McGlinchey, he is playing...
Because Mike McGlinchey's playing much better, and he's still by far our best run blocker.
He's playing some phenomenal football right now.
I just can't, you got to keep him at right tackle.
Yeah. And I think the thing that's so impressive to what you were talking about, Matty, is they're probably, and even for the analytics, it's starting to kind of come out that the Broncos have maybe the best offensive line in football. They're doing this with a revolving door at center. Just picture it for a moment where Wattenberg locks down that center position, or Alex Forsyth, actually, and not take away the field goal. Him actually, at center was also not bad, in terms of the way that he performs. So if it gets to the point where either one of those guys truly locks down that center position, you are talking about a little bit more of a more cohesive offensive line. So it goes to show you though, how impressive the line is that you're seeing a little bit more of a revolving door with center, but yet the continuity is still there.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't know the answer at center either. I definitely think you need to have more consistency there than we've had. And I know that injuries kind of play a role in this. But
I will say Wattenberg played really well
Wattenberg did play well. I do think it just comes down to you got to let him battle it out and pick one. Like I love the Oregon connection that you're trying to go with Forsyth. But if Luke Wattenberg's a better center, put him in there, keep him there.
Exactly.
And let them build chemistry, them being Wattenberg and Bo. Because I think if you can get the center locked down, I mean, both guard spots have been
Ben Powers
very good.
Ben Powers' redemption arc is not talked about enough.
Ben Powers has had a very, very good year as well. Like, I agree. Like, I feel like he's almost never mentioned. And, I mean, unfortunately, that's kind of the sign of a good guard. And really anyone good on the offensive line, the best sign is that no one mentions them.
That's was Quinn Miners for like
they play for the Cowboys.
The one thing I'll say about center is I want us to be under center more. And whoever that center is, I need that exchange with Bo Nix to be clean.
Yeah.
We can't have fumbles on under center snaps. Like that just can't happen. But when we were trying to go down and ice that game and we're eating up clock, we did it by running the ball from under center quite a bit. Isn't that funny how that works out? I was begging the group chat. I was like, can we just stop running out of shotgun? Can we run from under center and leverage this offensive line we've put so much money into? Can we please do that? And we did, and we were able to get into the second level and we had success. Like, let's let that happen more. I know shotgun's fun and there's some cool things you could do out of it. But like, if we're going to be a power team, then let's play power football from under center and get to work.
Well, and I'll tell you, that leads us into probably one of the other biggest takeaways, if not the biggest takeaway here, that if we weren't talking about Bo Nix as a franchise quarterback possibly, or cementing himself as a quarterback, it's also we kind of got some glimpse to possibly not to two things, both involving a backfield. You know, Mims kind of subtly carved himself a little bit of a role finally. You know, and then also we saw Audric Estime for the first game, really, where they actually handed him the rock. He handled it quite well for the amount that they gave to him. He handled it really well to possibly be a running back one. I think that the Broncos might have found maybe not necessarily, you know, an Alvin Kamara by any means, meaning Marvin Mims, but I think that, you know, people kind of forget. I said this comparison on 5280 last night, but people forget that Ty Montgomery was a New Orleans Saint under Sean Payton for like the latter part of his career. And that's kind of how they've been utilizing Marvin Mims, with just kind of like how they, you know, were operating him. So he kind of carved himself a little bit of a role finally, it seems. And Audric Estime, it seems like he looks way better than Javonte.
I'll say, go ahead, Brandon.
I definitely love that we are finding some way to utilize Marvin Mims, because I don't think using him at receiver is proven to work yet. So you got to do something with him. And I like the role that they've tried to carve out for him. And I definitely want to see that used a little bit more. I do think, let me ask you this question. Is Audric Estime RB1 moving forward?
I think he has to be until he messes it up. Yeah.
I mean,
I think I agree. And I still think we should draft a running back.
I also agree.
Yeah. I mean, but I think that the more it progresses though, and I will say this, what really goes into Audric's favor, Matty, is in terms of him really solidifying the running back one spot. Like he was kind of in the doghouse there a little bit, and, you know, injured to a certain degree, you know, but like at this point in, you know, in the season in week 10, you also have to call for what it is. And he actually, for as much as he might actually be the better back, he's also got fresh legs. So as you are really gearing up for a potential playoff push, like that fresh legs is going to benefit this team more as the season winds on, meaning these games against Kansas City or, the Browns and the Colts and this Falcons game upcoming, they're going to need to still be able to establish the running game, and estimate having those fresh legs is going to be truly a game changer at that point because of those fresh legs.
He looks a lot like Javonte his rookie year. And seeing how he runs the ball, seeing how he's explosive through the hole. That's fun. The wrinkle with Marvin Mims also puts strain on the defense. It's interesting. We hadn't seen any of that until now. It's like Peyton held on to that specifically for this game.
I thought that exact same thing too.
You said Ty Montgomery. That I could see that a little bit. It's kind of like Deebo Samuel in a way, how they're using him, but he's on a rookie scale deal. So can we call him Freebo Samuel? I think that's a pretty interesting way to get one of your most explosive players on your team the ball. And we saw a couple of times he was able to get the edge, and we hadn't really seen that out of the backfield yet this year. And a guy being able, like we saw McLaughlin be able to dance a little bit and beat to a pylon, but he wasn't able to really turn a corner. And Mims was able to get that corner. It's nice having a dynamic that forces a defense to keep the run fits all the way across the field.
Yeah.
I just wish we could use Marvin Mims for more than just that. That's my only gripe, but it's not.
But
it's not for lack of trying.
But I will say this though. For as effective as Marvin Mims was, and it was one game. If we see this for more, and throughout the season, it's really going to be worth watching and monitoring this. But did the way they use Mims also impact Jaleel McLaughlin's future in Denver?
100%.
Probably.
100%.
Well, especially with the class of running back options in this next draft.
And specifically, let's just say if they feel still really good about Blake Watson, right? Because Blake Watson was able to
do they? Have they used him?
But
I know.
It sounds negative when we say that, but it's just but still he's on the practice squad, so it's they at least have some semblance of a faith in him, So we all were, a lot of people were all wanting to write out J.L. Skinner, and he ended up being a really good special teamer, for the team. So it's just it's a slow process. And so I think that, maybe this is a case where this is a redshirt year to a degree with Blake. And it's just maybe you still use Mims next year with this role, and then you start to kind of carve out some more roles for Blake, next year and everything. But I don't know, maybe they still, because they did have two backs, right? They took Audric and they took Blake, and this was still
was Blake a draft pick? I thought he was a free agent.
I'm pretty sure he's a priority free agent.
He was a priority free agent.
Yeah, they picked up two running backs, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's all a moot point though. By the end of the year, come April, if they draft, these guys a Donovan Edwards, or what is it, Trayvon Henderson, some of these, rather good receiving backs, Singleton from Penn State.
Don't sleep on Raheem Sanders.
Rocket Sanders.
I mean, I know I'm biased, but that guy just gets it done against elite talent.
Yeah.
That's a guy to watch, maybe an early day 3 pick.
Yeah, this running back class is awfully deep. But yeah, I just think that, overall, if the way that we prefaced it, Matty, at the beginning was it's you feel so pissed off, right? You feel so pissed off about the game initially, but then it's you're also happy too, right? And so
no. I'm not happy. There's no joy.
Bonnie also brings up Manungai from Rutgers. If you guys have actually not seen Manungai and his Rutgers tape, he actually runs funny enough. He runs like Isaiah Pacheco, who, funny enough, is from Rutgers.
Add it to the list.
Yeah. All right. So to end the show, let's kind of talk about some of those draft prospects. Let's talk about some of those draft prospects, those running backs. And we can talk about some of those players. We mentioned some of them, but Matty, why don't you lead it off first, because this is the guy that we actually haven't exactly talked about, and that would be Rocket Sanders.
Yeah, Rocket Sanders plays for University of South Carolina, the real USC, against a vaunted Vanderbilt defense, which sounds insane to say, but this year that team is legit. 15 carries, 126 yards, 2 tutties, rushing, 2 catches, 52 yards, and a tutty through the air. Like, the guy just makes plays. He pretty much is that offense when it comes to skill players. I mean, there are a few other guys that make plays occasionally, but it's pretty much him. When you got to find 5. He lit up Bama. He lit up LSU. He's done it against quality competition. Early mocks that I've seen have him around like his number, 5th round. He might sneak into the 4th round early on. We'll see how he tests. There are a lot of running backs to like this year, but Rocket Sanders, man, he could get it done whenever, wherever. Kind of reminds me in a bit of a way of like a more explosive David Montgomery in a way. People talk about him now, but they didn't really talk about him coming out of college being a super impact player. I mean, he's evolved into that. It wouldn't surprise me if Rocket Sanders got a second contract somewhere and he was a rotational guy, able to pop one every couple of games or so, and a guy that you could use on short yardage. So just somebody to keep in mind that maybe other people aren't going to talk about. Go look up Raheem Sanders.
Speaking of the Gamecocks, Matty, as a concerned Broncos fan for this wide receiver room, what do I have to do to convince Nick Harbor to declare?
You got to get a time machine and have him go advance 2 years. The guy is incredible athlete. He's a little raw.
Because I feel like he's a little bit more of a more athletic DK Metcalf. The problem is like, I need Russ to retire because like he is like perfectly made to be a Russell Wilson type of receiver.
The thing is about Nick Harbor, though, like he has some work to do on run blocking. He has some work to do on understanding options, and he has a lot of bit of work to do on route running. Mm-hmm. What he doesn't need work on is athleticism and hands and freak talent. He very well could be an Isaiah Simmons of offense, where you could see him play a lot of different positions. The problem is Simmons wasn't locked into one spot, and so he was too versatile in a way where he wasn't really a master of anything. You're going to need more refinement from Nick Harbor, but the guy, he's elite athletically, and when he finally gets it, he's going to be a problem. It's literally an F at number 8 down there somewhere.
Yeah. Brandon, who's been some of the guys that are kind of catching your eye there?
So, unfortunately, this kind of continues to fall into the Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin bucket of
reunions,
wide receivers.
Talk about reunions? A reunion of sorts?
No, it's not a reunion. It's a sleeper.
Not Tez. Oh, sleeper.
No, not Tez. Ja'Cory Brooks from Louisville.
Okay.
He's probably going to slip down draft boards a little bit. I don't think you have to take him super high. And yeah, he kind of is in that same mold of guys we've just drafted that we hope can be that burner that we desperately need and want in this offense. But one of these guys has got to hit at some point, right? Mm-hmm. And Marvin Mims is, if he doesn't continue to carve out a role, could we see him maybe be a little bit on a bubble? Brooks could also come in and be your return guy earlier on and develop into like getting some snaps at wide receiver and just push Troy Franklin a little bit if Troy Franklin doesn't develop the way we're wanting. But I just think you need that part of your offense that we just have not had. And we have the physical receiver. We have multiple copies of the physical receiver. We don't have a consistent guy that can win over the top and just take the lid off the defense and make them scared of you. And yeah, we have a few guys like that, but none of them have really panned out. Ja'Cory Brooks could be an interesting name to watch at the very least. And you haven't really seen Louisville had to use him much because like the running game is disgusting. But
I will say, like, it's worth monitoring. It's okay to have like multiple guys. Like I think that Troy Franklin, once he kind of develops, will kind of get to that point where he'll, be a player that can kind of take the top off. Because it's clear, like, obviously he needs to take a visit to the jugs machine, but like there's been moments still in his early career where he's clearly been able to run the go route or just taking the top off, and he's there. He unfortunately, in the breadbasket and can't catch it. Frustrating, but I will say, like, it still wouldn't hurt to have another guy like that.
No, I don't think you can have too many until one of them hits. Like, you have to get something out of one of these guys, and until you get it, keep throwing darts.
Well, because look at the Chiefs, right? They had Tyreek Hill for X amount of years, and they also had McCole Hardman. So it's just like you give your quarterback toys. Doesn't matter, if it's a 6'5" wide receiver or a route runner / speed demon. Like, you give him all the weapons that you need.
Just give me an AJ Brown, please. Can we have one of those where we get size and speed?
I'll tell you,
his name's Jamar Chase.
I was going to say, what kind of option, do you guys prefer for going after a wide receiver? Because the way it is trending right now for me is I do think Cortland is here next year, but I don't think that it's going to deter them from going out and getting a wide receiver one. Meaning I can see them being all in on a guy like a T. Higgins or a Chris Godwin. What's a better option for you? A Higgins and a Court plus a Higgins and Court and going somewhere else in round one, or a Court and maybe say a Rondale Moore and a Cortland and going somewhere else in round one?
I'd rather have Higgins in Court of that combination, just specifically. I need to know where we're picking in the draft, and obviously we don't know that yet. But if we are not in the Luther Burden range, that changes my opinion.
Burden would be around 18 right now, but I think he'll probably trend up towards that top 10, probably where
I think he goes top 10.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I think he'll go like around 9 or 10.
He and Ted are gonna be bound. Ted is definitely going inside the top 10, but
I gotta ask a qualifying question.
Ted is absolutely going in the top 10.
Go ahead, Matty.
Go ahead.
What do we have at tight end? The same room?
Same room.
If we have the same room, then we do what we can to get Godwin, but I doubt Godwin leaves Tampa.
Would you get him? I mean, I know by the time that comes around, it's going to be a long time, but coming off of that injury.
I mean, if he's fine, he's fine. Him in the slot is one of the top 5 offensive weapons in the NFL. Running him out of the slot is a cheat code because he's got size, speed, and hands, and he has elite route running, and he's incredible at run blocking. He could get at the edge. He could get linebackers. He can obviously bully safeties. There's a lot of fun you can have with him out of the slot. Baker Mayfield 8
He
all
did.
day, every day, throwing it
did.
to Ford. Like, I so much so that like if he's got to take Cortland's number, so be it.
You want that fun guy out of the slot, though, man. Introduce Egbuka.
You
I mean-
may. I think that the development's going to still take a while.
Okay. Cheaper,
I'm sure.
but I get it.
But what if we took that draft pick and we went and got kept a Bronco? Then I'd rather do that.
Ashton Genty.
It's
Yeah,
there's
I think he's going top 10 too.
Yeah.
I see.
He might go top 5. Probably not. But he could.
I think teams are going to be gun shy to do that with a running back again.
It worked out pretty well.
Bijan was a can't miss prospect, and he's starting to play better of late. But like, it's tough. A lot of these, like, I don't know. There has been a running back renaissance.
But I mean, like,
I don't know, man.
but like, I'll just pin it briefly on you, Matty. Say you're the Dallas Cowboys. The way that it's trending right now is they're going to have a pick inside the top 10. You mean to tell me that they're going to pass on Ashton Genty?
Ashton Genty is the most top 10 Cowboys pick you could drop in a lab. For better or worse, he's I'm not saying this as a compliment.
No,
I'm saying the Cowboys would draft him in the top 10.
They would take one of the 2 Colorado boys, and Coach Prime would be going to be their head coach next year.
Coach Prime, who said multiple times he doesn't want to coach in the NFL.
That's cute. He said it, but I don't see him hanging around Colorado next year without either one of those guys.
but I don't know.
When Jerry calls, man, you got to pick up the phone. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know. It screams Cowboy for me. Meeting Ashton Genty, like, just based on like all the needs, specific, like, bad, like they need, and it would be Ashton Genty. So, and it wouldn't be the first.
They need everything, but he's just such a Cowboys pick that
I'm not rolling
would
out
happen.
quarterback. I know the Dak situation, but I'm not rolling out quarterback.
depends on how high they finish.
They're not finishing very high.
So then to transition this into some of that draft conversation and some of those draft picks, sitting right now, week 10 or after week 10 and moving on to week 11, you're way too early call for the Broncos draft pick.
There's too many ways in there for me to make that decision right now.
Well, this is the way, though.
I can't in good conscience say a name without seeing free agency first. I'll say Luther Burden because I don't think he'll be there, but that's who I want.
Yeah, Tankathon has him at 13 right now to the Bengals.
You never know what happens in free agency. That's why I'm like, well, I'll say a name even if I don't think it's realistic because we're talking about drafts
But
stuff at the beginning of November.
It's all conversation. No.
Yeah, it's all like, I can say what I can dream. I can say whatever I want. It's November.
Well, I've got it between 3 guys.
I have a backup if it makes it fairer, but
I'll go with one. I'll go with Trey Harris.
My bold prediction is I actually think Trey Harris actually ends up being a first-round pick.
Yeah.
When all
Broncos to take him around pick like 24, which is probably what their range that they might finish, depending.
Colston Loveland is an interesting.
I say the pick right now as we sit is Emeka Egbuka. It feels like he's
Uh,
right in that range of like possibly like where the Broncos will be, which is, that, what is it, 17 to 24 ish range.
okay. You want a spicier name?
Tyler Warren.
Tyler Warren.
That's not exactly spicy depending on
Hey, it could be.
Tyler Warren, though, like I will say this, Matty and Brandon, Tyler Warren, if there truly was a tight end who screams a Sean Payton tight end, it is 100% Warren. He can play center for you. He's got so much versatility. He can, be an inline tight end. He can be he can be lined up on the outside. He is a do it all for you dolly type of tight end.
The only reason I say like he's probably going to end up in the first round. The only reason I say it's a spicier pick, there's probably going to be some people out there that are like, "Why are you taking a tight end in the first round again?" But swing for the fences.
But weirdly enough, those players have worked out some. I mean, specifically lately, and
they also haven't worked out. Is the problem? Like they have and they haven't. It's kind of a coin flip.
But I also just realized that the tight ends that have worked out to a degree went to one particular university.
Yeah. Iowa.
Yeah.
And the one that didn't also went to that university.
Well, but to be fair, he's kind of trending upwards. By the way, he's trending upwards to a certain degree.
Trending upwards is not the same as working out.
But we could certainly use a Noah Fant right now.
I mean, we could.
I will say this.
We could use a lot right now. Let's be
We
honest.
could also.
I will say this, though. If we draft Tyler Warren and the first play of the season is a tight end sweep to Tyler Warren against, say the Raiders, and we're playing on Monday Night Football, I might punch my TV screen.
Are you going to go seek out Rich Scandarello and choke him out?
And tell him, thank you for giving me PTSD. Anyway,
prediction for this week?
Yes, prediction. What are you guys feeling?
24-20 Broncos.
Is Kirk Cousins playing?
Yes.
Yes, Big Mike did mention in the chat that Kirk Cousins has been dealing with a shoulder and elbow injury. I think I saw
right shoulder and right elbow,
which is throwing arm, by the way.
Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be a big test for the run defense because Bijan has kind of been popping off recently.
And Algiers no slash.
And Algier is a pretty good running back. Yeah,
Algier.
Drake London is also on the injury report, who's also kind of having a breakout year a little bit. This is going to be an interesting game. This is going to be a tough game. But we're playing on a brand new turf. Do you guys see that?
Yes.
Yet again.
It's a tradition.
We also, though, could get a little bit more help in the passing game. Maybe. I don't think he will technically be back and playing, but Josh Reynolds could play in Week 11. I'm going to say 27-24 Broncos.
I will actually say Devon Bailey is actually making Reynolds expendable. Just throwing that out there.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you need more wide receiver help this season.
No, I know, but like this
long term, yeah, but
next year he's kind of making Reynolds.
We ain't not next year yet. We need people who can catch.
I think we get a bit of an explosion. I think we get an explosion from the offense. Like the Falcons, for as many what seems like starting defense they have that do worry somewhat, they're bottom 20 or near the tops of the 20s, if you will, but in like run defense and pass defense, I think that the offense is actually going to have some really good numbers, I think, in this game. And I think my bold prediction in this is that Bo Nix gets 5 touchdowns in this game, 1 rushing and he has his first 300-yard game, and Audric Estime has his 100-yard game against the Falcons. And the Denver Broncos spoil my safety's return to Denver badly, and they win 35-17.
That's a bold take. I do agree with the 300 yards. I think that happens. I'm gonna say I'm sticking with my 27-24, but I would love a shootout.
I'm sticking 24-20. I don't want it to come down to a Broncos kicking the field goal either. So let's avoid that if we can.
Except
Absolutely
for
not.
PATs. Except for PATs. It would be really funny if I'm all kidding aside. But because of the decision of Forsyth that they just go for 2 every single time, just go to the Oregon playbook under Chip Kelly and just go for 2 every single time. Given what happened with Forsyth. Anyway, we want to say thank you guys to everybody that's been in the chat, to Bonnie, to Josh, Sherman, to Big Mike, Gonzo. It's been an absolute blast having you guys in the chat. Make sure you, again, hit the subscribe button over there on the MHRT Network. Make sure you follow all 3 of us over there on Twitter for Matty at Matty Mulls Pod. And also follow Brandon at Brandon Miller PO. Follow me at Cameron Parker PO. The show handle as well over there at Manely Broncos. It has been an absolute pleasure to get a chance to do this with you guys. We'll be back on Wednesday, and a friend of the program was also going to the game, and he will actually be on the show. And Jordan Lopez will be on the show to get his recap from being there at the game for that Falcons game and get kind of his point of view, my point of view, if you will, is too, because I'll be at the game too. And all of our point of views, because all of our points of views matter. And remember, at the end of the day,
Let's go Broncos! God bless Bo Nix!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.